Hi, this is Cheating Wife. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this story. Your support motivates me to share even more real stories from our life. And don't forget to leave a comment. I'll be really happy to read your thoughts. I never thought one night, one reckless decision would follow me for years. Even now, with a wife I adore, kids on the way, and a life that looks perfect on paper, my dreams are haunted by a woman I should have left in the past. It's almost like my subconscious refuses to let go, dragging me back into the same hollow room, the same bed, the same memory that poisoned me. And sometimes I wonder, will I ever be free of her? But to understand how I got here, I need to start from the beginning. Because what happened wasn't just a mistake. It was a storm, one that I stepped into willingly, even though I knew it would destroy me. At the time, I was heartbroken. I had just gone through a painful breakup with a girl. Let's call her Mickey. The kind of breakup that doesn't just sting for a while but eats at you, makes you question if you'll ever feel whole again. I was sad, depressed, devastated, and incredibly lonely. The kind of lonely where you just want someone, anyone, to look at you and say, I understand. I had just transitioned from one department at my job to another. In my old department, there was this woman, Jay. We were friendly, nothing more than acquaintances who joked around sometimes, exchanged a few casual laughs. Nothing serious, nothing romantic. But when I moved departments, she messaged me. Her text was simple, I'll miss working with you. We should grab a drink sometime. At first, I didn't think much of it. We had each other's numbers for work purposes, and up until then, that's all we had ever used them for. But her timing was almost too perfect. She messaged me on a day when the walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in on me. I was sinking deeper and deeper into that familiar, suffocating loneliness. And then, like she somehow knew, she asked, Are you okay? Do you want to grab a beer after work? And I said yes. Not because I wanted her, not because I had any plans of what was about to happen, but because I needed someone, anyone. We met at a bar. When I saw her, she smiled, and we hugged awkwardly. Her perfume was faint but noticeable, the kind that lingers just enough to pull you in without overwhelming you. We sat at the bar side by side. The bartender poured our drinks, and after a short exchange of pleasantries, Jay looked me dead in the eye and asked, What's going on with you? I froze for a second. It was strange, we weren't close. She didn't owe me her attention. But something in her tone told me she already suspected. She had worked near Mickey before. Maybe she'd heard things, maybe not. Either way, her eyes didn't waver, and against my better judgment, I opened up. I told her everything. About Mickey, the breakup, how I was spiraling. She listened quietly, nodding, occasionally offering a word of advice. But mostly, she just let me vent. And for the first time in weeks, I felt lighter. It wasn't that she fixed anything. She didn't. But the act of spilling everything out to someone who seemed to genuinely care made me feel like I could breathe again. We ordered cocktails after our beers. The alcohol loosened my tongue, and I could see her shoulders relax too. She laughed at my self-deprecating jokes, nudged me when I said something sarcastic, and for a fleeting moment, I forgot about Mickey entirely. I turned my head to the right, taking in the bar's atmosphere. The glowing lights, the chatter of strangers, the hum of music. And when I turned back, Jay was closer than before. I didn't even notice her shift. One moment, we were sitting apart. The next, her lips were on mine. It shocked me so much that I froze, completely still, as if my brain had short-circuited. She pulled back quickly, her eyes wide, as if realizing what she had just done. But then, before I could even process it, she leaned back in and kissed me again. Her lips, her tongue, everything about the kiss felt electric. And I kissed her back. Jay was beautiful, stunning even. I'd noticed that before, but never like this. Not when she was leaning into me, her breath mixing with mine, her hand brushing my arm. But then, like a bucket of cold water, the thought hit me. She's married. Wait! I pulled back, breathless. You're married. Her expression shifted, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. And that's when she told me, Her marriage was crumbling. She said the police had shown up at her house before, called by neighbors who overheard her and her husband screaming at each other. She insisted he never hit her, but the volume, the constant fighting, was enough for others to assume something worse. They had a daughter together, and according to Jay, the only reason she stayed was because her husband had threatened to take her daughter away if she divorced him. She looked at me, her eyes glassy but not from the alcohol, and whispered, "I've been unhappy for years." I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't prepared for any of this. I was 3 drinks in, drowning in my own misery, and now here was this woman telling me her life was a cage. Before I could find words, she added, "I've always thought you were funny, smart, attractive." She apologized for kissing me, saying she crossed a line, but her body didn't match her words. She leaned into me again, her shoulder pressing into mine, her face so close I could feel her breath. And then she kissed me again, and I kissed her back. We started making out at the bar, right there in public like 2 reckless teenagers who didn't care who saw. It was late. The bar was closing, the staff wiping down counters and flipping chairs onto tables. Jay turned to me, her eyes hazy, and asked, "Do you want to come to my place?" And I agreed. We were both drunk. I should have said no. I should have walked away, ended the night, gone home. But I didn't, and that decision has haunted me ever since. Her house was dark when we pulled up. I vaguely remember someone being there. Maybe a babysitter? But it's all a blur. I just remember the exhaustion hitting me like a wall. I told her I needed a shower. My job was physical, and I had been up for nearly 18 hours. She showed me the bathroom, handed me towels and soap. I was in the shower for less than 2 minutes before she joined me. And whatever you can imagine happening in there happened. We dried off, stumbled into her bed, and had sex. When the sun rose, we did it again. And then, as quickly as it began, she rushed me out before her daughter woke up. I left, and I felt completely hollow. I never thought that one night at a bar would turn into a storm I would carry with me for years. I never thought that a single kiss, one decision clouded by alcohol and loneliness, would echo through my life like an endless whisper. By the time the second week after that night rolled around, I couldn't stop thinking about Jay. Her face, her lips, the way she leaned into me, those memories played on a loop in my head. And yet, I also couldn't forget the hollowness I felt the morning after, walking out of her house like some kind of secret that should never have existed. Every time I tried to shake it off, I failed. My chest would tighten at random moments during the day, like when I'd drive past the bar we'd first kissed in, or when a song came on the radio that reminded me of her laugh. She had told me she wasn't going to leave her husband, and I told myself I had accepted that. But deep down, I hadn't. "Why not?" she had asked when I said we couldn't keep doing this. Those 2 words burned into my memory like a scar. I replayed them over and over again in my head, searching for meaning. Was she taunting me? Testing me? Begging me to fight for her? I didn't know. But I knew one thing. I couldn't stop feeling like there was unfinished business between us. Weeks turned into months. I tried to move on. I dated casually. I buried myself in work. I spent time with friends. But no matter what I did, Jay's presence lingered in the corners of my mind. Some nights I would wake up drenched in sweat after dreaming of her. In those dreams, I wasn't just in her bed again. I was tangled in a life with her, one that never existed but somehow felt so real. I could see her daughter running into the room, giggling, calling me by some affectionate nickname. I could hear Jay's voice telling me that everything would finally be okay. And then I'd wake up, heart pounding, the silence of my room mocking me. It was torture. At one point, I decided I needed closure. I convinced myself that if I just talked to her one more time, all of this would stop haunting me. So I sent her a message. "Hey, how are you doing?" Simple, harmless. She replied faster than I expected. "I'm okay." "Busy. How are you?" We went back and forth for a while, catching up like 2 old friends. There was nothing romantic in the words, but underneath the surface, I felt the tension. I couldn't stop myself. "Can we meet? Just to talk?" There was a long pause. When she finally answered, it was short. "I don't think that's a good idea." I stared at the screen, frustration bubbling in my chest. Why couldn't she just give me 30 minutes of her time? Why couldn't we just sit down face to face and close this chapter? I didn't see her again. Not then. Not for months. But I kept dreaming. Dreams of her, dreams of us. Dreams so vivid that I would wake up shaken, questioning reality. Was it normal? Was it obsession? Was it guilt? I didn't know, and I hated not knowing. One day, she reached out again. Her message was short, almost rushed. I can't talk to you anymore.
I'm pregnant.
My stomach dropped. I didn't even know how to respond at first. When I finally typed back, my hands were shaking. Yours?
No.
His 100%. And just like that, it was over. She said she couldn't see me, couldn't talk to me, couldn't risk anything. I accepted it on the surface. But deep down, the dreams didn't stop. Years passed. I built a new life. I met someone who truly loved me, who made me feel safe and whole again. We bought a house together, started a family, built something real and solid. And I was happy. At least I thought I was. But in the quiet moments, when the house was still, when my partner was asleep beside me, Jay would creep back into my mind. Sometimes she appeared in my dreams like nothing had changed. Other times it was darker. I'd see her husband, angry, shouting, accusing me. I'd wake up breathless, clutching the sheets like they were the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to reach out one last time. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was risking my relationship, my peace, everything I had built. But I couldn't stop myself. Hey, how are you? I typed, keeping it casual. This time, there was no reply. Not that day. Not the next. And then suddenly, every account I had her on, blocked. Facebook, Instagram, even my number. She was gone. Vanished from my digital world like she had never existed. That night, I sat in the dark of my living room, staring at my phone. I felt sick, angry,
Sad.
empty, all of it at once. She didn't want to give me closure. She didn't want to remember me. She didn't want me at all. And yet, I couldn't stop wanting answers. I couldn't stop needing them. The more I thought about it, the more dangerous my thoughts became. What if I just told her husband? I whispered to myself. What if I just blew it all open? Would that finally give me peace? I imagined it, sitting down with him, telling him everything. A letter, a phone call, maybe even face-to-face. The thought scared me, but it also gave me a strange sense of control. Like maybe, if I couldn't get closure from her, I could force it into existence another way. But deep down, I knew it was wrong. I knew it would destroy lives, hers, his, their daughters. And for what? For me to finally sleep at night without seeing Jay's face in my dreams? For me to finally feel like the past didn't have its claws in me anymore? It was selfish, and I hated myself for even thinking it. That night, I made a decision. I had to come clean to my partner. I couldn't carry this secret anymore. Not the dreams, not the messages, not the temptation to blow everything up. So I sat down with her. My hands were sweating, my chest was tight, but I looked her in the eyes. There's something I need to tell you. Her face shifted instantly, worry flashing in her eyes. What is it? She asked. I swallowed hard. It's about Jay. And that's where things truly began to spiral. That's where my story started racing toward the ending I never saw coming. But I'll get there soon enough. For now, you need to understand how every step, every decision, led me to the edge of a cliff I couldn't avoid. I never thought a single night from years ago would still have such a hold on me. I never thought I would carry it like a ghost, haunting me every time I closed my eyes. Even now, as I sit here trying to put this all into words, I feel the weight of it pressing on my chest. You see, it's been 3 years since that night with Jay. 3 years since I crossed a line I swore I'd never cross. And yet, I still dream of her. Not every night, but often enough to make me restless. Sometimes it's a replay of the bar, the kiss, the way her lips felt on mine. Other times it's the shower, the steam, the way everything blurred into heat and confusion. And then there are the worst dreams, the ones where she looks at me with cold eyes and tells me I ruined everything. I always wake up drenched in sweat, my partner sleeping peacefully beside me. And every time I feel sick with guilt. Because here's the truth. My partner doesn't deserve to share a bed with a man who still thinks about another woman. But she knows. She knows what happened with Jay. She knows the affair was short, impulsive, reckless. She knows I cut it off. And she forgave me. She gave me something I didn't even know I could ask for, grace. And yet, I keep hurting myself by revisiting the past. The worst part? Jay never gave me closure. Every time I tried to reach out over the years, she dodged, excused, avoided. And now she's gone completely, blocked me on everything. Clean break. For her, not for me. I was still stuck. One night, not long ago, I sat across from my partner at the kitchen table. The kids were asleep, the house finally quiet. I knew it was time. "Hey," I said softly, fiddling with my glass of water. She looked up, immediately sensing my unease. "What's wrong?" I swallowed. I reached out to Jay again. Her face froze. Not angry, not surprised, just tired. "Why?" she asked after a pause. I told her everything. The dreams, the lingering thoughts, the desperate need for closure, the way it ate at me, how I couldn't seem to bury it no matter how hard I tried. She listened, quiet, steady, like she always does. When I finally ran out of words, I waited for her to explode, to curse me, to call me selfish, to accuse me of betraying her forgiveness. But instead, she sighed. "Do you love her?" she asked simply. "No," I said quickly, firmly. "I don't. I never did. It wasn't love. It was loneliness, weakness. It was wrong." She studied me for a long moment. "Then why do you keep giving her space in your head?" I didn't have an answer. That question stuck with me for weeks. Why did I let Jay live rent-free in my mind? Why did my subconscious cling to her, to that night, to the unfinished business of it all? I realized it wasn't love. It wasn't even lust. It was the lack of an ending, the lack of a real goodbye, the unanswered questions. Did she regret it? Did she ever think about me? Did it mean anything to her? I would never know. And that realization, oddly enough, was freeing. Because sometimes closure isn't given. Sometimes you don't get to wrap it all up neatly with a bow. Sometimes the unanswered questions are the closure. But of course, my mind didn't let go so easily. One evening, after a long day at work, I drove aimlessly through town. I don't even know why, but I found myself near Jay's neighborhood. I hadn't been there in years. I slowed down, heart pounding, staring at the houses that all looked the same but somehow held the weight of my memories. I parked down the street, and I just sat there, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I thought about walking up to her door, knocking, demanding answers. But then I thought about her husband, her daughter, her life that had nothing to do with me anymore. What right did I have to barge in? To dig up the past? None. I started the car and drove away. And for the first time, I realized I didn't want to see her anymore. Still, the dreams came, and each time my partner noticed the shadows under my eyes. She never pressed, but I could tell she knew. Finally, one morning, as we sipped coffee together, she put her hand on mine. "You need to let her go," she said gently. "I'm trying," I whispered. "No," she shook her head. "You're holding on. There's a difference." Her words pierced me, because she was right. I was clinging to Jay like a man clings to an old wound, poking at it, reopening it, refusing to let it heal. And it wasn't fair. Not to my partner, not to my kids, not to myself. So I made a decision. No more reaching out. No more searching her name online. No more wondering what if. Instead, I would focus on the life I had, the life I built. And slowly, painfully, I started doing just that. Weeks turned into months. The dreams didn't vanish overnight, but they lessened. And when they came, I no longer woke up with the same desperation. Instead, I reminded myself, that chapter is closed. My partner noticed the change. She smiled more, she laughed more, and so did I. We painted the kids' room. We planned for the baby on the way. We cooked dinners together, burned some, laughed over others. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in years, I felt free. But then, out of nowhere, it happened. I saw Jay. I was in a grocery store, pushing a cart down the aisle, when I spotted her. She looked almost exactly the same, older, maybe a little more tired, but still beautiful in that effortless way she always was. She was with her daughter. My chest tightened, my breath caught. She noticed me. Our eyes met. For a split second, it was like time froze. And then she turned away. No smile, no wave, no acknowledgement. Just nothing. She walked past me like I was invisible. And that was it. That was the closure I'd been chasing for years. Not a conversation, not an apology, not an explanation. Just silence. Just distance. Just proof that whatever existed between us was dead and buried. And in that moment, I felt lighter than I ever had before. When I got home, I told my partner. "I saw her," I said quietly. She looked up from folding laundry. "Jay?" I nodded. "And?" she asked carefully. "And nothing," I said with a small smile. She walked right past me, like I didn't exist. And you know what? That's okay. For the first time, my partner smiled in relief. "Good," she whispered. "Now, as I sit here writing this, I realize something important. The past will always exist, can't be erased, but it doesn't have to control me. Jay was a mistake, a moment of weakness, a scar I carried far too long. But she is not my present, and she sure as hell isn't my future. My future is here, in this house, with my partner, with my kids, with the family I almost destroyed but was lucky enough to keep. And I won't waste another second chasing ghosts. So if you've ever been haunted by someone from your past, let me say this: closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you. Sometimes the silence is the answer. And finally, I'm okay with that.